G'day everyone, welcome to another Toon Under podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's biggest and best podcast, all things Newcastle United. It's been a week or two since we've all kind of recovered and got ourselves back into normal life after the famous black and white visited our shores. Jack, you haven't had a chance to sort of just let it all out since last week, mate. How have you been? How did you find the whole situation?
I had a good weekend. So obviously, I just came down for the Friday. So you guys probably got the best part of that with the being at the Wednesday game. The Friday game was obviously an absolute shambles. It was calamitous, but honestly, I didn't care really. Like you saw the team sheet, it didn't matter. Like it was just being there with everyone, letting my daughter Eleanor have her first experience of going to a match as well. So that was all good. It was nice to see everyone, and I think the whole week as a whole was good, a positive. It just ended on that disappointing note with the game on Friday and then Man U winning the cup. But what can you do?
No, it's my first time on as well, so it sucked the life out of me last week, but it was awesome. Huge shout out to Aussie Mags for everything that they done and organised for the week. I don't think the week would have been half as good as what it was if it wasn't for them and working with the club and sort of getting everything sort of sorted and places to go before the game, the flags, the scarves, everything like that. They were just awesome the whole week. So if you sort of listen to us and you don't follow Aussie Mags, especially if you live here in Australia, get on them on Facebook. I think they're on Instagram and Twitter as well. They're massive. And if you're ever looking for a meetup or anything like that in a capital city in Australia, that's where you go and they'll post where to meet and what pubs and what times and everything like that. So, yeah, it was one of the best weeks of my life. I'm not going to lie. Like, everything was just perfect. And even like you said, Jack, the game Friday night wasn't ideal, but just the actual experience and for me as well, same as you, taking my girls there for the first time was awesome. I didn't think they really cared about the result. It was just all the singing and stuff like that. They were blown away. So, I just want to say thank you to everyone, both the Aussie Mags and the club as well, for what they did for us last week, and it was absolutely huge. So, without further ado, we'll get stuck into our season review and kind of semi awards. We've been Craig Keith's. In the famous words of Chopper, mate, Keith's off to the sick bay. You've probably got no idea who Chopper Reed is, but yeah, you do, yeah. So Keith is off to the sick bay, and we've got a new sort of trophy. We've only got one of them, so it'll have to be shared around between all our winners and things like that. We're going to do a season review, but it was just way too hard because the season felt so long and there was so many ups and downs, and like the start was really good and it turned to shit in the middle with the injuries and the fixture pile-ups and stuff like that, and then it kind of got a bit better after maybe the middle of February, and there was just too much to unpack and so hard to make. So we kind of thought if we do our, I guess, awards, that'll kind of tie in with the season and things that had happened during the season and stuff like that. So we'll kick off with our first category. Craig, I'll start with you, mate. What was your game of the season? And the asterisk was it can't be the PSG game because I'm sure that's everyone's favourite game of the season. So apart from that, what was your favourite game of the season?
West Ham at home, the 4-3 win. That just had everything. Goals, drama, red cards, dodgy ref decisions, you name it, had it all. It was a perfect advert for the club in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, how about you?
I am Craig.
Lee? Yeah. I looked at you and said Craig.
Yeah, I thought about this quite a bit. I had West Ham on there, obviously, for the turnaround, and that kick-started a bit of good form for us as well. Never mind game, PSG is probably one of the best days of my whole life. Like, it was just the best game of ever, one of the best Newcastle games ever. So it's probably a good thing that you've ruled that out of this one. The one that I've gone for is actually Villa at home, which feels like a very, 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 very long time ago now. But it's because it's probably the only game this season, or one of the only games where we actually saw our team at full strength, and we absolutely dominated a team that would go on to qualify for the Champions League. So I think that was just it just showed that the hope's there, you know, like we're a good team. We've got these good players. Tonali scored. Everything looked so rosy at that point. So, and I think just the way we just absolutely crucified their weaknesses, and we really went for it that game. So that's the one I've gone for my favourite game, if I'm not allowed to say PSG.
Yeah, shout out Lee. Lee was going to jump on with us tonight, but unfortunately he's got a bit busy. His one was the Arsenal one at home. That was a great game. The atmosphere was awesome for that as well, and the fact that it was controversial and it ended up maybe arguably costing them the title. Yeah, I think that was Lee's favourite as well. My favourite was the same as yours, Craig. It was the West Ham game. I don't think you get many better feelings in sport than a last minute winner or an injury time winner when your team scores. So that was definitely mine. So I guess the power of the vote 2-1 to 1. So our perpetual prize that we've got Aiden Harris's glove from the A-League All-Stars game. So Aiden, unused, I'm tipping because I don't think he stopped one the whole night. After the game, we managed to get to kind of near the front where the players were coming out of and stuff like that, and he gave it to my young daughter, and she was absolutely stoked with it. And I quickly snatched it off her and said, "We're going to use this for our award show." So the club, I guess this one goes to the club. You can have Aiden Harris's right-hand glove for that one. All right, the next category was the signing of the season. So I guess we had Tino Livramento, Lewis Hall, Harvey Barnes, Sandro Tonali. I think off the top of my head, that was it for our four sort of signings for the first team and stuff like that. Jack, I'll start with you this time, mate. Who did you go with?
It's not a very pretty bunch, really, to choose from.
No,
it's kind of by default this one. I think it's Barnes because he only played 20-something games and he missed from September till February, but he scored 5 goals, I think it is, and he got 3 assists. So he's really high production despite his lack of game time. So tonight you can't say because what happened. The other obvious, well, I won't go on to the others, but I just think it probably is just by the process of elimination for this one. And I think all 4 of these signings will be good signings in the end. It's just we didn't see the best of them this year. But yeah, for me, it's Harvey Barnes.
Craig, how about you, mate?
I was going to say Barnes, but his injury disrupted that. And he missed a big chunk of the season. And Tino, he had a cracking start to his Newcastle career. I think the first game he started, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, was the game at Old Trafford when we won 3-0 in the League Cup.
I think it was.
He ran that show. He
was man of the match too, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. So I'm going to go with Tino based on the fact that I was actually against the signing of him when he first came in, purely because of his previous injury. Didn't really think that we needed another right back, considering we already technically had 3 at the club. But he's proved me wrong, so I'm happy to give him my signing of the season.
Yeah, I sided with you, Craig. I really thought about Harvey Barnes as well, but I was kind of in the same boat as you. It's just the amount of time that he missed with that injury, and I had high hopes for him too, and I still do. Like, it's not going to write him off after that. And I think his injury record was like unbelievable before he joined us, and then I think it was a toe injury, and I reckon something else happened in that recovery that ended up extending his sort of time on the sidelines as well, which wasn't ideal for anyone. But I mean, Livramento, I don't think anyone thought he was going to play as much as he did, especially with obviously Kieran Trippier, the England right back, playing for us. But like everyone else, Kieran got injured, and then Livramento had to play. He even filled in at left back at times as well. I can't really remember him having a bad game, really, like in the times he played. And unfortunately, we couldn't say the same for Kieran Trippier. He definitely, after he come back from his injury, he had quite a few moments where he wasn't the player he was sort of the start of the year and last year as well. So that's why I just went with Livramento. I think the body of work that he had and stuff like that just sort of put him slightly ahead of what Harvey Barnes did. But I think Harvey Barnes is going to have a very, very big season for us next year. I think he's going to be an absolute weapon for us to come off the bench at the end of games, and with his directness to goal and running at tight defences and stuff, we got a bit of a taste of that. Like you said, that first game against Aston Villa, Jack, he was an absolute menace when he come on. And I think when our team's at full strength, all things planning, I think we're going to get a new right winger in this summer as well. So for Gordon, a new right winger, and to have the availability of Harvey Barnes to come off the bench is going to be a really powerful thing for us. And even in the midfield as well, having hopefully an injury-free Joe Willock to run at defences as well at the end of games, it's going to be really, really strong, and it could be a really powerful thing for us next season. And when you add in, we don't have the extra games anymore and stuff like that. I can see us having a really, really dominant year next year.
I reckon our signing of the season is probably Minte. He's probably had the best season.
Yeah, I know.
Of anyone,
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Any player that we actually signed last summer. So, so I wouldn't be surprised if Livramento and Barnes actually played a similar amount of games, like in terms of total appearances. I think probably Tina started a few more, but I wouldn't actually be surprised if they did play a similar amount of games. Like, let's be honest, none of them did what we wanted them to do, like there was signs from Tonali, but there was also signs that he was going to take time to bed in. So it really will be like having new signings next season with these guys. Which is Alan Pardew Claxon there, but it wasn't the best transfer window in the end for this season. But like I said, I think all four of these players will be big for the club moving forward, so it'll work out all right. It's just you can't, none of them really did that well this season for one reason or another.
No, they're probably the best of a bad bunch. But even what you said just then, Jack, with it's going to feel like a new signing. You could probably extend that to like Sven Botman as well, and even probably Joel Linton to a lesser degree. Like the amount of games they missed, they will be like new players in the team when they eventually come back. Now, I'm not expecting much from Botman next year. By the time he comes back, probably around Christmas time, and take him a while to get his feet under him. So we probably won't see the best of him until definitely in the back end of the season. But it's going to be crazy. So same again, outweighed. Tino, you can have Aiden's glove. Well done, Tino. All right, your highlight of the season, Craig, on or off the field. It's just your own personal highlight.
Off the pitch, it has to be Newcastle coming down here. Just the experience with everybody around. That is easily my number one choice on that one. On the pitch, this is really hard on this one. And I'm going to split the award to two people. One is Dan Burn scoring in the PSG game, because I think that was thoroughly deserved. And also Miley scoring his first goal at the Gallagher end. And that is a kid, that's something we all dreamt of. And he's gone and done it. He's living the dream, both of them are. And, local lads. Jack, both of us are local lads. Keegan, your family's from that area. It's something we've all dreamt of doing, and they've gone ahead and done it. Couldn't be happier for them both. So I'm splitting the award between them two.
All right, Jack, how about you, mate?
Yeah, it was Longstaff obviously scored in the PSG game as well. So that was the PSG game overall. Like I said, was one of the highlights of my life. Never mind this season. I thought about this a little bit differently in terms of I like sort of like broader sort of in one moment. So I did have Lewis Miley's emergence as one of them. That was a highlight. That run from Brentford, that was a really big win against Brentford back in, it was September. We had to win that game, and we did. And we went and won 8 of the next 11 after that. But for me, overall, it's Anthony Gordon. When I think of this season, I'll think of Anthony Gordon. The output, the goals, the assists, his general attitude, just the way he played, he was so good this season, and that was a real highlight after he took a bit of time to settle in last season. But just to see how he's developed as a player, but also as a character and as a person, he's got into the England squad. He looks like he's going to be in the final Euro squad as well. So it's been really, really proud to see his development and the way he's carried himself. Really, like that overlap interview he did with Gary Neville is one of the best interviews I've heard a footballer do, never mind such a young one who plays for my club. So his overall form and his application and his personality of this season has probably been my overall highlight for this season.
Yeah, you both kind of stole what I had. So I had my off-field highlight was obviously last week. Like, it was one of the best weeks of my life, and the stuff we did, even the fan workshop stuff was just awesome, and get to talk about the club and what the club can actually do for us, which is a mind-blowing thing for people who live on the other side of the world. Even just to have them conversations was just crazy to think about. Then at the MCG, meeting Shola Amiobi the next night and taking my girls up to the Marvel Stadium game was just crazy. Just a little asterisk on that too. We went, me and I think Mark come down for the national meetup, the Aussie Mags national meetup in October for the Palace game as well, and that was unreal. Like, just to meet so many people and walk into a pub by yourself with 200 Newcastle fans that you've never met before, and you walk out with 200 mates was something really special as well. And on the field, Jack, I the same as you, mate. Anthony Gordon, and pretty much exactly what you said. It wasn't just his performance on the pitch, which was unbelievable, and something that, let's be honest, none of us seen it panning out the way it has. We thought he might be a better player than what he was at Everton, but nowhere near what he's turned into now, and the work he put in the off-season has really paid dividends. But like you said, Jack, it's just as much as about him off the pitch as well. Even the stuff he did with the sensory kids and the deaf kids as well, and things like that. Was it maybe 3 weeks ago when the young kid was struggling in hospital in Manchester, and Gordon's made his missus drive him down 2 hours to hospital in Manchester to give him a shirt and stuff like that. Like, that's... Like, he doesn't do it to be recognised. He does it, I think, because he's a decent human being. And yeah, that sort of stuff. It does make you a bit emotional, doesn't it, Jack? Like, with kids and stuff like that. And when you see someone, especially of his age, he probably doesn't appreciate it, what he's doing, because he doesn't have kids. And you do sort of change your perspective on things, I think, when you have kids in situations like that. But yeah, he's just blowing me away. And that's not taking away what he's done on the field as well, but what he's done off the field is absolutely incredible. And there was even I seen a video the other day with the England camp, some bloke's rocking up for his first cap, and he's literally at the car waiting for him to greet him. And
yeah, it was
I'm like,
it was
mate,
great.
Yeah, like, you're just a great bloke, and no one would have thought that 18 months ago when we signed him. So
he's representing himself. He's representing himself so well, like, and he's representing the club so well. And we really have to cherish, like, people like this who come in. He just gets it, like, and it's funny the way that the Everton fans reacted when he left. You know, like, there's questions about his attitude, as the way he plays on the pitch. He got under people's skin a bit, but there hasn't really been much of that. Like, he hasn't really wound opposition players up much this season. He's won plenty of penalties, but he hasn't dived. He hasn't cheated. Like, in fact, he's been cheated himself out of penalties more than anything. So, but that video of him going to Manchester, he didn't do that for publicity, like you said. Like, he just went straight away and did that, and he's a really special person. So I'm so proud of what he's done this season, and the way he's developed, and he really is the individual story of the season.
Yeah, and I think it just makes you happy. And this doesn't have to be Anthony Gordon. It could be any maybe club that you support in any sport and things like that. Craig, I know you don't really like many other sports except for this one, but like, following Aussie rules and things like that, and especially here in Geelong, it's a very kind of small community. Not small, but everyone kind of knows someone like that's had a positive interaction with one of the Geelong footballers off the field that will never get like storied by the media or anything like that. And it just makes you really proud that you actually support the club that these players play for and things like that. So yeah, it's just awesome. Having said that, we'll move on to the disappointment of the season, Jack. What was your biggest disappointment of the season?
There was a few things that I thought about here. The injuries, obviously, I don't want to talk about them again, but they were a big disappointment. A couple of the individual games, like the last week of the season, Brighton and Man U, that was pretty disappointing. Missing out on Europe, just the away form generally. But I think the main, I've got two that I want to kind of focus mainly on. The first one is the big moments. So we missed the mark in the big games. Milan at home, Chelsea in the cup, and Man U away in the league. we need to work out how we're gonna get the attitude right and get the mindset right for those games. I don't think it was a problem of not trying. It was just maybe some naivety. Like, they were really consequential defeats in big high pressure games. So that was a big disappointment that we couldn't really put any of those games where we had to win, or where we had to not lose to bed. That was a big one. And the other really big one is just Tonali's ban, because like I said, he was brought in, I think, to come into that midfield and to really let Sean Longstaff have a rest, bring some real quality in, change the way we played. We saw him for 10, 12 games, and then, no fault of our own whatsoever, that was taken away from us. So that was a really big disappointment. But like I said before, that means that he's effectively like a new signing next season. He's actually had a whole season training with the squad and the club as well, so he knows kind of what the expectations are. So I would fully expect he'll come back ready to, pay back the support he's had from the club and from the fans. It could end up being a positive, but it doesn't feel like that when we were playing Lewis Miley and Longstaff in that run of games. So yeah, I would say that was a bit like how Gordon was the story, the positive story. I think Tonali's ban is the big disappointment.
Yeah. Craig, what was your biggest disappointment of the season, mate?
Pretty much to echo what Jack just said. Tonali started with the world on fire with that game against Villa, slowly fizzled out, and now it's going to be back end of August before we see him play in the black and white shirt again. Hopefully hits a ground running just like he did this season. But also the injury side of things, it was just never ending, wasn't it? One after the other. And it wasn't just little niggling injuries as well. It was injuries where they're out for 3, 4, 5, even 6 months for some of the players. And yeah, it was definitely a season of ups and downs. There was probably more downs than ups at certain points of the season. But Tonali and injuries for me.
Yep, I was exactly the same as you two guys. I had Tonali and the injuries just kind of took the jam out of the donut for the whole year. Every time we sort of got one back, we lost another one, and we could never really get on top of it for the whole season. And Tonali, like you said, Craig, he started like a house on fire against Villa, and then I think he maybe set the bar too high for his first game, and maybe he was unfairly judged to that game compared to what he did. But I also think at the same time, there was a lot going on off the pitch as well that definitely would have affected what he was doing on it. So hopefully these 12 months he's kind of had a chance to get himself sort of sorted, his life sorted off field. And I think the club have been very accommodating by all reports to try and help him get over his issues and things like that. And hopefully, I think he will, Craig. I think he'll hit the ground flying come August. He's going to be fit as a fiddle. I spoke to a couple of people at the club. Look, it sounds so stupid to say something like that, but it's actually true. So he's gone on holidays early so he could get back to training earlier and really come. I think he's back in the 4th week. He'll be absolutely cherry ripe and flying. So I've always wanted to use that line, and I'm stoked to finally be able to say that I spoke to someone at the club. And I spoke to a few people at the club, but just for this one, I did speak to someone at the club. So we'll stay at the bottom. So I wanted to kind of start this high, and I thought of it as like a bit of a concert set list. We both, all three of us, we love our music and stuff like that. So when you go to see a band, they kind of always start high, and it kind of fizzles in the middle, and then it picks up again towards the end. So imagine we're in the concert now, and they're playing 3 or 4 songs off the new album that no one really knows yet. So we'll get this one out of the way too. Craig, what was your worst game of the season, mate?
Probably because of the disappointment. Liverpool at home, that 2-1 defeat, when Núñez with those 2 goals right at the death. We had that game in the bag. I mean, they were a man down. Van Dijk sent off as well. If any Liverpool player you want off, it's him. Just for the gaps that's going to create in the defence. Miggy, he had a worldie saved. He then hit the post as well. And they then just got lucky with a ball that bounced off Botman's arse into the path of Núñez. And the image of Klopp just shushing Jason Tindall, I'll never forget that now. Because Tindall done the same to him as we went 1-0 up. It just, that was the biggest one, because that was a time where we were on top of the game. We could have put a big stamp on the rest of the league with 3 points in that game there, and we blew it. That was the first time of the season, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. But that's one that had the bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah, look, mate, look, you could have just said the result. I didn't have to relive the blow-by-blow account of what happened. It was bad enough. Jack, what was your worst game of the season? And please tell me what game it was and the result, because I don't think I can go through another traumatic description like Craig just gave us.
I want to talk. So that Liverpool game was actually the day before I started a new job, and it was like one of those Monday morning 3 a.m. jobs. So that was I'll never forget that feeling of losing that. That was horrendous. Like Keegan just said, I've just got trauma again there all over from that. Liverpool away was actually terrible as well, even though it was 4-2. The XG for that game, Liverpool had over 7, which is the most in Premier League history. And just to put that in a bit of context, when we put 8 past Sheffield United, our XG was only 4. So that just shows you Liverpool absolutely pissed all over us that day.
That show your XG is broken if you actually score 8, but you only meant to score 7. Come on.
Basically, Liverpool absolutely shat all over us that day, even though it was 4-2. But the one that I wanted to really focus on briefly, it was Milan at home.
Mm-hmm.
We had that in the bag. We were winning at halftime. We knew that a win would at least have us finishing third and going into the Europa. And then it just fell apart. Like, I don't know if this was tactical naivety. I think it was. I don't think it was managed well. The players didn't execute the plan properly. When they scored, it was a big question of whether we keep going for it, because we knew that PSG were drawing. So we knew that if we'd scored again, we would have gone through. But we also knew that if we conceded again, then we'd be out completely. And Fabian Schär went on a slalom run up from his position.
Jack, what are you doing?
Sorry, Keegan. I know, but
PTSD.
It was horrible. And then we conceded that goal that we conceded about 50 times this season, where the right winger outpaced Dan Burn. I think it was Botman actually who was at fault for this as well. But yeah, no, that was horrible, and that was a real learning curve game, because we can't manage games like that. We need to show more know-how from the managers and from the players for that situation. Because it was very, like I said before, very consequential, because we crashed completely out of Europe. The Europa League, we probably wouldn't have won it, but we would have had a decent chance of at least maybe getting to the quarterfinal or semi-final. Even though going out meant we could concentrate on the league, that didn't really help us through January and February. So yeah, for me, it was AC Milan, and there's been quite a few games this season that we'll remember for a long time for all the wrong reasons. But that was top of the tree for me.
PSG away as well. There's another one.
Yeah, that's hard though, because we didn't lose that, so it's hard to kind of quantify it.
We
So
had that in the bag, and that was the shittest penalty decision anyone has ever seen. If we had won that game, not only would it have been a historic win, but we would have still been in Europe as far as I'm concerned. That's the goal that screwed us over in the Champions League, not the Milan one, as Jack just mentioned.
Yeah. So I had the Milan one as well, Jack, but I definitely remember after, so I was, like everyone, I was fuming after the game that we didn't at least try and salvage something out of it and stuff like that. But after hearing Eddie Howe speak, he said, not quite for quite, but essentially he'd said that he didn't want to take the opportunity away for us to progress in the Champions League, and if that meant missing out on altogether, then he was fine with that. But he didn't want to, I guess, take that opportunity away from the players who had worked so hard. So I can kind of understand what he did. I think it was just a brain fart by Fabian Schär, and that kind of cost us in the end. But I think once the Europa League started up again, it did kind of ease the pain a little bit, because our injuries were probably worse than what they were at the end of the AC Milan game. So it kind of did make me think, well, we probably would. I don't think we would have got very far from where we did, and it definitely would have affected our league form even more. So I did end up landing on the Liverpool game purely if, like I said earlier with the West Ham game, if there's not many things better than a last minute winner. There's not many things worse than conceding one. So it's a real sort of shin to the toe ball, that kind of stuff. So the Liverpool one was mine, and honourable mention maybe as well to the Man United game in the last week. They were absolute dog shit, and we should have done something. And like you said earlier, Jack, I think we bottled that game too. So anyway, that's enough.
No, I think with the Man U game though, we at least played quite well away. Like on the balance of play, we had.
It was, yeah.
You look at Forest at home and Luton, like they were not good. They were probably the worst performances of the season because of the.
I still think there was mitigating circumstances for them games though, like
injuries,
with the injury and the 2 days, 3 day breaks between games and things like that. We couldn't train. Even if we could train, we couldn't train because there was no players to actually train properly with because there was 13, 14 blokes injured or suspended. So it was just a complete shambles of a time that kind of probably November to February, really. Like that 3 or 4 month period was a nightmare. I don't think we'll ever see anything that bad again. Your most improved player, Jack, who did you have for this?
I already talked about him, but Anthony Gordon. From the start he had where he looked a bit off the pace for 6 months. He said himself he wasn't fit. He got 1 goal against Chelsea in the last game of the season. But from where he was to where he ended up, and for the last time this season and possibly forever, I'm just going to point out that in my preseason prediction, I said he was going to get double figures goals and assists, and he did. So he was the most improved, but he was also the one that I think most people thought was going to be the most improved as well. Even though actually I listened back to the preseason preview and a couple of us talked about Anderson after he had such a good preseason. He got injured and that kind of derailed his season as well. But yeah, I think it's clear. It's clear for this. It's Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, Craig.
Yeah, it has to be for most improved, doesn't it? I don't think anyone comes anywhere close.
Oh God, I had you pinned for Lewis Miley for sure. I thought you were going to say him straight away.
The most improved player?
He'd come from nowhere and was holding his own against the Champions League semi-finalists. I thought that's a fair. It's a fair improvement. If it was a category
for young player of the season, he would have been easily my number one. But most improved.
Well, he was the only one, so that's why I didn't do it.
Now would have been Miley next season, maybe. We'll see how he comes on. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Your goal of the season, Craig. Who'd you have?
Ooh. Harvey Barnes against West Ham is a strong contender for obvious reasons. And Shaw against PSG. I think both of them, I done a little sexually when both went in effectively. And I made noises that I didn't know my body could make. It was just, both of them were genuinely incredible. I can't pick between the two, but if I had to purely for the moment, Shaw's just because it was against PSG and it was in the Champions League. But the goal was effectively irrelevant because we're winning the game anyway. But yeah, has to be Shaw's, I suppose. I've got to pick.
Jack, any arguments?
Yeah, so I had both of those on my list. Shaw, like you said, Craig, when that Shaw goal went in, I was like, I made this noise and I didn't know what it was. And then my daughter ran into my bedroom wondering what was wrong with me. Because it was just an unbelievable moment to top it off like that. But I'm going to go for one that's a bit more low-key, and it's from that Villa game as well. And I reckon this was the best team goal we scored all season. It was Callum Wilson's goal, which I think made it 4-1. But I was watching a video of Tonali's best moments. It popped up on Twitter the other day, and it was Tonali in that game was probably the best individual performance of the season. But he was involved twice in this goal. He won the ball, he popped it off to someone, got it back, and then he played the through ball through for Harvey Barnes and beat the Villa high line, and then he put it across perfectly for Callum Wilson. So in terms of just a quality one-touch team goal, which just made you sit back and think, oh my God, what a team we've actually got here before everyone went and got injured and banned for gambling. That was the goal that you just thought, wow, we are a serious team again. So that's one I've gone for, the goal of the season.
Yeah. So I was with you, Craig. I landed on Fabian Schär against PSG, and I think you two are probably the same. And anyone who's listening would probably had the same feelings as well about 3 or 4 minutes before that goal. My wife, I was tense, like I was nervous and things like that. And my wife said, "Oh, do you think they're gonna win?" And I was like, "No, like it's 3-1." She's like, "There's not much time left." I said, "No, you don't know these teams." So that goal, not like the actual sort of slipping and still managing to put it in the top corner, and the occasion and the team, it just, for me, it just had to be number one. And it was just the collective exhale after it went in, and not just from the 52,000 people that were there. Probably would have been the millions of Newcastle fans that were watching it around the world as well. I'm sure they all probably would have had sick gut like the rest of us, even at 3-1 with not long left, that we're every chance to stuff this up. And when that went in, it was absolute party time. So that was mine. We'll get to our, what's the award, the main award, what everyone's hung around for, and they want to know the Player of the Season award. Jack, I'll start with you, and I think I know what you might be saying here.
Well, it's not Anthony Gordon. After everything I've already said about how amazing he was and everything.
What a plot twist.
I know. I just think if you look overall, our best player is Bruno. And I think he is probably our one world-class current player, maybe with Isak as well. World-class player who could... Bruno could walk into any team in the world, I think, and improve them, including Man City. Maybe even including Real Madrid now that Toni Kroos is gone.
Can you say this after June, please?
But Bruno, he only missed one game all season, and that was the Bournemouth game. So a season when everyone else was going down with all sorts of problems, he managed to avoid the suspension for about, I think it was 12 games. He managed to not get booked for, considering he used to get every week before then.
That should have been in the highlights of the season. The fact that he went that long and didn't get suspended was mind-boggling.
So I just think he scored in 5 of our 6 away wins as well. So that just shows how important he was. When Bruno plays well, the team plays well. When Bruno's not playing, the team doesn't play well. And if he's a bit off form, the team struggles. So I think he's the most important player we've got in terms of the tempo he sets, that his attitude, the fact that he obviously just loves being there at the club. It plays into his ego a little bit, I think. Like he loves the fans. He loves his dad goes in the away end. Like the whole package with him in Newcastle is a really good fit. And I do think he's our best player. So I think if Gordon had been injured a bit, we might have coped a little bit better. If Bruno had been injured for any period of time, I think we would have been probably 14th or 15th or something. He's that important to the club. So I think Bruno is the player of the season.
Craig, who's yours, bud?
Matt Target. No, take this. No, it's got to be Bruno again, hasn't it? And again, just like before, echo what Jack said. He is pivotal to everything that the club does on that pitch. From back to the front, he pretty much covers every blade of grass. How many Ks did he run the season? Was it 430?
Something like that, which was funny because Danny Murphy had said that he's not.
I was going to say more than Danny Murphy thought he was going to.
It's the distance from Newcastle to London, and he's run that in the season, which that's kind of impressive, to be honest. But he's not an athlete by any stretch. He's not a naturally fit player. Danny Murphy, stick that up your pipe. He's genuinely an incredible player, and he will be a miss when he's gone, whatever that may be, and it will happen someday. I'm just biding me time for it. But he's incredible, absolutely sensational, and easily our most important player.
Yeah, which kind of, when you think about it, we've had a bloke with 10 goals and 10 assists who probably isn't the player of the year. We've had our first player since Alan Shearer to score 20 goals a year, and he's not our best player either. And so that shows you how good of a season that Bruno's actually had. And I know it was only a friendly and it was a sort of chilly Wednesday night at the MCG, but Craig, I think you just appreciating that little bit more when you've seen him live. Jack, you can maybe just block this conversation for a second, but just the way he actually moves and the way he protects the ball, so he can sort of put himself between his opponent and the ball, but still be in a position to actually move it on to his teammate and everything like that. And like I said, it was a postseason game against Tottenham at the MCG, but even that little glimpse, then he just looked miles better than everyone else that was playing. And I think
He's special.
the plan was to bring him off about 10 or 15 minutes earlier than what he did, and he I was just watching him for a little bit because I was just in awe and like, shit, I don't know if I'll ever get to watch him again. So I was just kind of watching him, and he gestured to the bench like, no, I'm not coming off. Like, leave me on for a bit longer. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it kind of made me think, oh, maybe he's not playing Friday night, and that's why he wanted to stay on a bit longer. Turns out he was leaving the next day anyway, so that's why he wanted to stay on a bit longer. But yeah, like you said, Jay, he is absolutely first class, and we're very lucky to have a player like him in our team. And how long for, no one knows, but I think we just enjoy him while he's here. And
Yeah.
whenever that time comes, I don't think he's going to be a player that we kind of, what's the word? Not ridicule, but we boo and everything like that. Whenever, if he does come back to the club, I'm sure whenever he leaves, and if he does ever come back playing for another team, he'll be chanted and cheered and everything like that, because he's done everything right, and he's just been the perfect player for us. And I think the way he is, and him and the fans, it's just a perfect mix. And yeah, let's just enjoy him for however long that is. Hopefully it's next season as well, and for a few more seasons, and we can satisfy his needs and things like that, and we can stay together for a long time. So Bruno, you can have the Aiden glove as our Toon Under podcast player of the season. So that'll wrap up our awards show, our season review show as well, kind of in the same thing. Stay tuned during the week. I reckon at the end of the week, Craig, I think we're going to drop a pod on the new Adidas kit that's due to be released on Friday, I believe. Hopefully we might start maybe getting a little unveiling bits and bobs during the week, and then the whole thing will come out. Well, I think it's available on Friday. I think here we go again. The people that I've spoken to at the club have said that it will be available. It will be available on Friday. So hopefully the unveiling will be someday during the week, and then we can finally get back. I can't speak for you guys, but the kit doesn't really bother me too much. I'm more excited about, I want their training range and their leisure range to become on sale, because I think I'm going to be wearing that a lot more than what the kit is. So yeah, hopefully Adidas, I know you guys have been watching, so if you could hurry up and get that sorted, that'd be really good. Maybe I did think about this as well. The club released their own kind of leisure range last week. I think they're just trying to sell as much as they can, because I know when the Adidas stuff comes, they're not going to sell anything like that. So quickly, we'll see how much money we can make off the generic stuff until the big guys come through, and that goes absolutely gangbusters. So stay tuned for that. If there's any transfer news sort of breaking, I think if anything's going to happen, it's probably going to be Lloyd Kelly in the next week or so. So if anything happens, we'll be all over it and keep an eye out for that. But yeah, if we don't see you in between now and Friday, have a great week. Stay tuned. The kit, I think, Craig, you're going to do the Kit Nerd launch, aren't you?
I am indeed, and I'll have my pre-order on the second it's available.
Yeah, and I've got no doubt your pre-order will actually come when it's scheduled to come and be shipped, and apart from our last suppliers, which we've all had fantastic experiences with Castor as well. So, Jack and Craig, thanks very much for jumping on, guys. A pleasure as always. Once again, thanks to Aussie Mags and everyone who organised last week. From me personally, it was one of the best weeks of my life. So it couldn't have been possible for all the work that you guys put in. So we'll see you next time, Jack. Craig, we'll see your beautiful face, or we'll listen to your dulcet tones when the kit pod drops. Probably not one you want to listen to. It might be more of a YouTubey thing, so we can actually look at the kit once it's unveiled and stuff. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Everyone else, it's been a blast. If you're still with us, I'd love to hear your nominations and awards for what the categories that we've spoken about as well. So hit us up on our socials, and we'll go through it, and we'll apply to every one of you. So thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Cheers. Peace out.
Cheers, lads.